Big mistake on a night out caused my kids to turn their backs on me and losing my loving husband. I think my stupid mistake has caused my whole family, and now my kids hate me. I have been crying for the past week, and I really need to vent it out. My name is Esther, and I am 35 years old, and I work as a florist. I own my shop, and I had been living my quiet life with my family before I got married. The name of my husband is Andre. Andre is a lawyer, and he is 40 years old. Andre was the definition of the ideal husband, and I was happy I got to marry him. Andre and I first met in high school. I was the girl that everybody was friends with, and Andre was the man who was calm and always reserved. He was the ideal gentleman. I don't know how it happened, but we eventually became friends. It was that day my period came in school, and I didn't know what to do. Everyone kind of ignored me, and some were laughing at me. It was Andre that took me to the school clinic. Since then, we became very good friends. Our friendship grew over the years with me being the social butterfly and Andre being the one who was quiet and reserved. I could tell that my friend loved me because every little thing about me he was always taking it so seriously. He always made sure that I was well taken care of. People kept telling me that Andre liked me, but I didn't believe them until he asked me to prom. And from there, we became more than friends. After high school, we went to different colleges, but we were still very much in touch with each other. During the last week of college, I fell pregnant, and when I told Andre about it, he was so happy. He was the happiest person ever. I didn't know what to do. I was so scared that my parents were going to disown, and to be honest, they were very angry. But when I told them Andre had plans to marry me, their anger subsided. They called Andre and they spoke to him, but by then Andre didn't need convincing because he already was planning to marry me and I was happy. I had to make it clear to Andre that I didn't want to trap him with the pregnancy, and that if he wasn't ready, we should hold on for the time being. He told me that he was happy that we are starting a family, and so he was ready. I completed my school and we started planning for the wedding. It was beautiful and also very stressful, but Andre was there for me to rely on. He was very supportive. Andre's mother was the best. She was also as sweet as her son. She welcomed me like a daughter, and I was glad, because for the wedding, all hands were on deck, and they were also taking care of me while I was pregnant. After the wedding, I moved into Andre's home, and we started preparing for our baby's arrival. We were young, but Andre made sure to always put me at ease. It wasn't easy for us. Andre was the only source of income, so at some point we were struggling, but we were surviving. After our baby boy came, we were so happy. But after the baby's arrival, I was able to start something, and I opened a florist shop. I loved flowers, and it had always been my dream to own my own shop. I started the shop with the help of Andre, and the shop came up. Andre was very supportive as always, and officially I began my life as a florist. I made little money and tried to give some to Andre, but he refused and told me it was important to stand on my feet first. After a few years, Andre got a better job and everything started moving well. We moved from a one-bedroom apartment to a bigger one, and our family began to grow after my first child. We had 2 more after that, then we were done. Pregnancy wasn't easy, but Andre made sure that it was as stress-free as possible. We were living comfortably by that time. Our children are grown, and sometimes I just think to myself how fast time has gone. It was as if I closed my eyes and my oldest child is already 15 years old. Having 3 children wasn't easy at all for me, but I had a supportive husband, so I didn't have to worry. There were days where I was so busy with work that I barely had time for the children, but then Andrew would come to the rescue like he always did. Whenever it was the holidays and the kids were at home, they would usually spend it with my parents or Andre's mother. That usually gave Andre and I time to ourselves. And during those times, we could take out time from work and spend quality time with each other. After our little get-together without the kids, I always felt refreshed and was ready to go back to work. Everything seemed to be moving well until I met someone from my past. Anytime I look back, I always feel like our problems started from that particular meeting. I ran into my high school friend Annabelle one day, and everything literally changed. Annabelle and I went way back, but ever since we left high school, we lost contact, and so I was happy that I saw her that day. We were partners in crime, and our friendship was great. Annabelle and I got to meet up, and we talked about our lives, and it was really nice to catch up with her. I introduced her to my family, and Annabelle was surprised that I had a 15-year-old. I had to tell her that I married early, and whereas Annabelle wasn't yet married. After Annabelle had left the house that day, Alfred called me to the side and told me that he didn't really like the vibe he got from Annabelle. I found his assumptions weird, so I told him that he should forget about it and that it wasn't anything serious. I explained that Annabelle could come off as a demanding person on the first day, but if you got to know her, you will know that she was a very sweet person. I had absolutely no idea I was defending the wrong person at that time. It just felt weird to me that my husband didn't get along with my friend, because Annabelle and I back in high school were like two peas in a pod, and she definitely brought that back with her. Annabelle would come to the shop, and we usually spent our time talking and laughing. She was the type of person that there was never a dull moment with. We would go out for drinks at times, and sometimes Annabelle invited me as her +1 on different occasions. My husband and I started having issues immediately Annabelle came back into my life because I would forget time and stay with Annabelle talking and socializing. I started to go home late, and I was lacking behind in terms of taking care of my home. My husband noticed, and he pointed it out to me, and he told me that I needed to change and I had to stop seeing Annabelle. I agreed that I was going to change, and so I started cutting back my hours with Annabelle because I didn't want to cause a rift between my husband and I. My husband noticed that I stopped speaking to Annabelle, and I was just on my own. Annabelle also noticed the shift, and I had to explain to her that my husband didn't want us to spend that much time together, as we used to back in school, because now I had a family, and I needed to put my time and attention on them. She agreed, and we gave each other space. I was so happy that she was understanding, because some people would have taken it the wrong way. But I knew deep down everything wasn't well within me. After the whole Annabelle drama, I didn't really move on. Before Annabelle came back into my life, I was the girl who was happy in her home. I was happy, but I was just a housewife. I didn't have a social life. I was just there, but ever since Annabelle came, I started to feel the way I used to be before I met my husband, Andre. I knew that I couldn't be seen with Annabelle, and so I started spending secret time alone. Anytime I was free from work, I made sure to go to a quiet place and just chill. At the end of the day, it's not easy to be taking care of the family and also working. I just needed some alone time, because family can be overwhelming sometimes. My children were my everything, but the house was a chaos sometimes. I told Andre that I needed to go see my mother, and so I left my family for about 2 weeks. They kept calling and asking when I was coming back. I kept saying soon. At my parents' place, I was able to unwind and just be free. I decided to visit the local bar, and there I met a few people who were in the community. They were friendly and accommodating. But whenever the guys saw the wedding band on my fingers, they tended to just leave and ignore me. It was a little bit weird to be treated that way, and it didn't really rub me in the right place. After my little getaway, I got back home and I went back to my business. I had someone in charge of it, and that is why it was easy for me to just travel. When I returned from my trip, Andre had to go for a 3-day work trip. I used that opportunity to call Annabelle, and she came over to the house, and I think that was where I made a mistake, because my children weren't happy to see her. They kept telling she was not a good person, and that they remembered how Andre and I had issues because of her, but I ignored them because I didn't see anything wrong with her. It was as if I was the black sheep who was doing what their father said I shouldn't do. I thought the kids would take my word for it and stay out of everything, but the moment Andre got back, they told him the truth. That really surprised me because I didn't prepare for that, and I had no idea of an excuse to give. Andre was very upset with me when he got back, and it was all very visible with the way he acted. He didn't talk in front of the kids, but he pulled me to the side and told me that he was deeply disappointed in me. That really made me feel very bad, and even though I tried to give excuses for my actions, he made it clear that he would not tolerate such in his house anymore, and that I should never make the same mistake. He felt like I was proving him right each time by going behind his back to do things I was aware would get him upset. From Andre's reaction, I was able to learn my lesson and not make mistakes, at least for some time. I concentrated more on my marriage and my children. We were back to our normal lives. We could eat breakfast without any tension or drama, and sometimes we usually went out for dinner. A few weeks later, Andre surprised us with a vacation since it was summer break, and we started planning for the trip that was going to make us bond more. I was very much happy, and the trip did what it was supposed to do. A few weeks after I returned from the trip, Annabelle came over to my shop, telling me that she needed help with money, and I had no other choice but to help her. It went on for a while, and eventually she returned all the money, even with interest. I was very happy about it. On that day, she told me that she wanted to treat me to an outing that was happening, and it was her own way of saying thank you for the help. I reluctantly accepted because I didn't want something that could jeopardize my marriage, since my husband had told me that I shouldn't have anything to do with Annabelle. I told myself that I had to ask my husband what was his deal with Annabelle, and also ask the reason why he hated her so much, because I didn't want to keep accepting Annabelle's invitation behind Andre's back, and so I got home and I asked him. He told me that he had no business with Annabelle and didn't care to know anything about her. His only problem was that whenever I was around her, I always did things I never did, and made decisions without thinking twice. After hearing his reasons, I refused to tell him about my recent encounter with Annabelle because that could trigger him the most, and so I made plans to just go on the outing with Annabelle. I got to the gathering that Annabelle had invited me to, and it wasn't what I was expecting. It was very much like a party meant for single ladies, because what was going on were not things that a married woman should do. It wasn't a place for me, but I just said I should just concentrate on the reason I was there and just enjoy myself. A few minutes after being at the party, I was enjoying myself, and so was Annabelle, and at some point I didn't see her again. She had disappeared from me. I met a lot of women that I found out were married. I was so confused. Why were they living that kind of way by dancing on guys? They told me that I should just forget that I was married for a second and just live my life. I wasn't buying it at first, but I later gave in after getting a few drinks and started to let loose a little, and that was where my problem started from. I wasn't myself again, and I started to dance with various men and even make out with these men. I was feeling very different at that point, and I didn't know where I was again. The next day, I woke up in a bedroom with a naked man on top of me. At first, I didn't really feel anything because everywhere on my body was numb. It was later that everything hit me, and I discovered that I had just slept out and I had a family, a husband, and I just had an affair with someone I met at a party. I had started thinking back to how I got to the party and so on, and I discovered that my friend had led me astray. I picked up my belongings and I tried to call Annabelle, and she didn't really answer my call. I was so blank, I didn't know what to do. I wanted to go to my shop and just stay there and think, but I decided against it after seeing a lot of messages and missed calls from my husband and children. I went home and I didn't see my husband at home and my children were at school. I tried to change and try my best in order for me to come up with a lie that was going to be good so that I could get out of the trouble I had unfortunately put myself in, but nothing was coming to mind. When my husband got back, he asked me different kinds of questions about how I should have done the needful, and called if I was going to stay out late, and he asked me where I went, and I couldn't lie to him because I suspected that he already knew about it. I was scared of being caught in a lie once more. When I told him about Annabelle and how I helped her, he became so furious and he started to shout at me. He told me that he had warned me, but I didn't listen to him, and the result was that I had cheated on him through the influence of Annabelle. He asked me if I expected him to pity me after I made a fool of his kindness. I tried to tell him Annabelle was the one that destroyed our marriage, but he called me a gaslighter and told me he didn't care. According to him, I made the decision and I had no right to stand in front of him and act like I was doing him a favor by telling him the truth. I started to beg him to forgive me, but he threw me out of the house. I wanted to explain everything to him and tell him that I didn't mean to do what I did, but he didn't give me the chance. I tried calling Annabelle, but it wasn't going through. I decided that it was best if I just went to her house so that I could stay with her for some time before I reconcile with my husband and get back to my family, but I was wrong and I went to Annabelle's house, and she told me that she couldn't accommodate me because she was having guests over, and I was so disappointed because this was somebody I helped a few weeks ago, and she is refusing to help me just for a little while. I also had to ask her about what happened at the party that made her leave me. She kept giving me excuses. I didn't really blame her. She was everything I was warned about. It's just that I had to learn my lesson the hard way. And it was not completely her fault because I wanted to go to the party. I wanted to let loose for a while, but that led me to disobeying my husband. Andre was the easygoing person without problems, and he just had one rule of being a good and loving wife, and I broke the trust he had in me. Since Andre threw me out of the house, I haven't seen my children, and so I told myself that regardless of the problems I had with Andre, we could work it out, and we shouldn't bring the children into the mist. I got home and Andre and the children were around. I tried to speak to my children, but they ignored me. They were so angry with me that I had cheated and disobeyed their father. They didn't want to have anything to do with me. It was all so overwhelming. It was as if I wasn't listening right. The children I gave birth to suddenly don't want to have anything to do with me. I begged my husband to listen to me and let me explain everything, but he refused. My child said I shouldn't have cheated on their father. My own case was different. Other mothers get the support of their children, but I got the opposite. My children were not my own again. How did I make such a terrible mistake of disobeying my husband, who was everything and more? I cheated on him, and I destroyed the family that I spent time building. Since it was difficult for me to find a place to stay, I had to start staying in my shop, since the shop was the only thing I had that was mine. I had to go call my parents, and also I spoke to Andre's mother in order for them to convince Andre to forgive me, and so that we can be a family once again. But that didn't come easy. I was insulted for being loose and cheating, disobeying, and so on. My parents were so angry that they decided to take sides, and it wasn't my side. But after a few weeks, my parents came around and they decided that they were going to go with me to meet up with Andre so that we can sort out things, but it all took a turn for the worst. We got there and I tried to even speak to my children, but they turned their backs to me. Andre told my parents that he was done with the marriage and he gave me the divorce papers. It all played out like a movie to me. How could I be so careless? My parents tried to beg Andre, but he told them that it was too late for us to fix our marriage. Nobody blamed Andre because he had given me countless chances and I blew it. I thought I had a chance to even fight for us, but there was nothing left again. I lost my children and I lost the husband of my youth, my loving husband, the man who cared and loved me. After that day, my parents advised me to sign the divorce papers and try my best to do right and make amends with my children, since they didn't see the possibility of my marriage working out again. It was then it dawned on me that it was really over. We went through the divorce and we were given joint custody of our children. It was a really tough time for me because I had wanted to have a family I could grow old with. That was not possible any longer. Few weeks after the divorce, I found out that Andre had changed the password to the bank card he had given me. I had no money again. My business wasn't moving like before, and things were just stagnant. I was able to find a place to stay after a while, but it wasn't as comfortable as I wanted. My children behaved like I didn't exist whenever they came over, but I am currently working towards restoring our relationship. It is just not coming easy at all.
Update.
It's been months since the divorce, and I have been trying to cope. My mistake cost me a lot. The people I called my friends were enemies. Annabelle and I are in a separate space. I wish I had never met her. She played a part in everything. After the divorce and all, I called Annabelle. We met up and she blamed me for my own misfortune. It was as if it was my own karma for trusting someone blindingly. I didn't blame her though, but I wanted closure. I wanted to ask her why she did what she did. I had to ask why she took me to the party and did what she did, but she said it was just for fun, and I took it overboard by cheating on my husband. She claimed that she had no ulterior motives, and that I was the one that made the decision myself. I left there angry and I knew that I was defeated. I am trying to reconnect with my children now, but it's not easy. It's like they have closed me off and they want nothing to do with me. Andre has moved on and it still pains me that I lost my loving husband and family all of a sudden.